Hello, everyone. Welcome to In the Kitchen to our third installment of the Parents Program. We're here with Tom House, the GOAT of all GOATs of coaches, the only man that I know that's coached Hall of Famers. And how many sports have you coached Hall of Famers in?
Three.
Three?
Yes.
That's
Football,
football
baseball, and golf.
and golf.
And I was
Wow.
terrible at all three.
Look at you. And now you coach all these Hall of Famers, all these three big sports.
Miracle.
Miracle. Yeah. So let's wait for some people to come in. They're coming in. Just a reminder, if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. Let me open up the chat here, or in the Q&A, you could drop them. We got Tom with his 100 years of experience will answer the questions. Let's see. There we go. We're all good. So Tom, how you doing? How's
Good. You had a good day in the field today. I have 3 more days coming up. The weather here in San Diego has just been perfect, so I have no complaints.
Anytime I call you, or it's you say it's perfect. It's sunny, 78 in San Diego. December, January, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
August.
The only thing wrong with San Diego is there's too many people. If there was no people here, it would be a perfect place to live. But it's okay. The weather is, I think, 345 days a year. It's between 68 and 72 degrees. So, you can't complain.
Can't complain. And that's why I like to go visit you when you're working out the guys.
Sure.
It's always a good time there. Perfect weather, good food.
Always good food.
Good food, great atmosphere.
Yeah.
So have you been watching any of the playoff games? Did you watch any of the wild card games?
Yeah, of course.
I was a little shocked at the
Jose
sweeps.
getting taken out, yes.
I was gonna say that at the sweeps, and then Jose, one of our mustard guys, worked with Tom in the off season. He looked electrifying. I think his stuff looked amazing yesterday. Everything was on his sliders, and they
Go
just
figure. It had to be an
took him out.
analytic. It was not a baseball decision. It had to be an analytics decision. His stuff was electric, and it came back and bit him in the butt. But again, hindsight's always 20/20. So you move on.
To me as a manager, if a guy has his best stuff, like why take him out? Like
I know.
To me, like I don't know. I'm not. Maybe I'll be a bad manager.
We have to bridge the gap between old school and new school, and unfortunately, in some circumstances, analytics, you can't measure, team chemistry with analytics. You can look at performance in terms of numbers and quantify X, but X with an attitude is, I'll take Jose Barrios, the way he was throwing yesterday, over bringing a reliever in, but that's you and me. We're not the manager, and we're not his boss on the Toronto Blue Jays.
True. And then too, I always find it interesting, like you're bringing a starter, right, as a reliever, which is a different it's a different mindset, I think, right?
Right. Yeah.
You went through that, right? How different is it to come out of the bullpen as a starter, right?
Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. As a starter, you have all kinds of time to get your emotions under control. As a reliever, you're coming in and it's Mach 3 and with your hair on fire with the first pitch. So bottom line, that day's over. We're already into planning for next year with Jose.
All right, perfect. And we're gonna get some more playoff baseball starting Saturday, I believe. And
yeah.
Go Dodgers for me.
Oh, yeah, you're bleeding blue, which is awesome.
And in the chat, we got to go Twins here. So from Weldon, we got some Twins.
It should be a really good postseason all the way through.
Yeah, I always feel like it's always a team that gets hot, gets on a roll, right at the end.
Yeah, Phillies are definitely on fire right now.
Yeah, it's always scary to face those teams, I think, that just get going.
Without a doubt, but it's good theater for baseball across the board.
Yeah. What was your favorite team you played on, like going in the playoffs?
My favorite team was the team that was paying my paycheck. But as I look back, if I could have been good with any of the teams that I played with, I would have really liked to have been good in Boston, but I stunk up the place in Boston. I had some really good years with Atlanta and 2 pretty good years with Seattle. But overall, I feel blessed to have pitched in the big leagues for close to 9 years. And when you look at my career, I probably represent what most kids out there are. You know, I was never a star at anything, but with good information and properly being mentored, I put myself in a position where I had a chance to make teams, and I did. And that's what we're trying to do with Mustard.
We're trying to do a muster. We're trying to get all those kids to get all the Tom House information. You studied for the last, was it 40 years? 50
Yeah,
years?
my mom used to say I was overeducated and undersmarted. So we have on the field experience, we have academics, and then we have research from the medical side of the equation too. So it's a good fix.
Perfect. So yeah, today's topic, week 3, the parent program is injury prevention. Week 1 was get your report card. Last week was how to execute your My Plan from the Mustard app. And this week we're going to talk about injury prevention. So what are the most common, injuries in baseball you see with pitchers? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Let's set some parameters first.
Yeah.
When it comes to pitching, there's 3 things that keep your arm healthy: your mechanical efficiency, your functional strength, and your pitch totals or workloads. And if you can manage those 3 things in your preparation, then your competition and your recovery is much easier. So all those things the research is out there, it's pretty solid. The things that cause kids injuries that are traumatic, like getting hit with a ball or sliding into a base wrong, those are things that you really can't prepare for. But as far as workloads and injuries that come with repetitive movement, there's enough information out there that kids should not hurt themselves as much as what we're seeing in the landscape we call baseball right now.
Perfect. So at what age do you recommend starting with this? As soon as you start pitching?
Yes, as soon as you start throwing, it's age specific. There are windows of trainability. And briefly, and I know I get a little long-winded here, but it will help with whatever questions are coming through. Your first window of trainability is when you're a pre-adolescent, before testosterone or estrogen shows up. And you can do virtually everything except lift heavy weights at that point in time. So first window is about muscle. First window is about nerves. The second window is about muscle. And that's when testosterone shows up. Then you can start working on something besides body weight, lifting your own body around. You can go with what we call open chain resistance, which is the dumbbells, the weight room stuff. The third window is skill acquisition, and the fourth window is skill retention. So most of the kids we'll talk to tonight or answer questions for tonight are probably going to be in either the first or the second window, which is nerves and muscles. And when you prepare them properly, when nerves and muscles can talk to each other, then you can start working on skill.
Perfect. So let's start at step 1, the importance of a warm-up, right?
Yes. Okay, good. Yeah, it's cute when I watch little leaguers get to the ballpark. They go right to the bucket of balls, they go out with their buddy, and they start playing catch right away. They're actually using the throwing motion to warm up. It's very important to understand that doing that is actually harder on their arm than throwing too much down the hill. What you want to do is you warm up. Basically, you train to throw. You don't throw to train. So you warm up to loosen up to do your activity. And sometimes you have lots of time before a game starts. Sometimes you show up late and you have to get everything done in 20 minutes before the game starts. But either way you look at it, you want to warm up to loosen up to do your game. And if you do that, you've taken care of one of the issues that will hurt kids, and that's trying to throw before the body or swing a bat before the body's actually ready.
And this applies across all the sports, football, basketball, volleyball, where I told you last week, I see it where they just start throwing the volleyball around to warm up before they're cold and they're just throwing a volleyball around.
And remember, there's not very many 6 to 10-year-olds that are ever stiff and sore anyway.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to them until they do hurt themselves. there's no reason to use throwing or swinging the bat to get loose. That's part of your warm-up process.
Perfect. So have a good warm up.
You have warm up to loosen up to do your activity. So your warm up would be core temperature elevation.
Yeah.
Your loosening up would be throwing the ball or swinging the bat. And then you actually go into game competition from there.
Perfect. Let's go into throwing. Once you start throwing, how far should you start? How far can you go? Can you do long toss every single day?
Yes, what we say is, and if you're taking notes, please write this down. I think in today's game, our kids pitch too much and don't throw enough. If I could wave a magic wand for baseball players or softball players, I would have them throw something every day year round. Now, they don't have to pitch every day year round, but the throwing motion is adapting to throwing a 5-ounce ball or a 7-ounce softball with large numbers on flat ground. And one of the issues that we face is kids sometimes throw more down the mound than they do on flat ground. So when you say, what is long toss? And long toss is important, but long toss is as far as you can throw with perfect mechanics to your level of tolerance with number of throws. So if in a perfect world, after you've gone through some block training to get yourself warmed up, when you start loosening up to play catch, start at a distance where you can work on your mechanics to your level of tolerance. And then as you get more and more loose, the longest you should throw is as far as you can throw perfectly. And you never want to cast the ball. You want to try to keep it on a line. And the longest throw you'll ever make on a field is about 120 feet. That's basically catcher to second base or outfielder to cutoff man. So you don't have to throw 300 feet to enjoy the benefits of long toss. What you want to do is throw as far as you can with perfect mechanics, and you build repetitions with the intensity that you're comfortable with, and that's how your arm adapts to the throwing motion.
Perfect. Thank you. So yeah, now we got the warm up. We got the throwing warm up too. Next, we're pitching now, right?
Okay.
We're on the mound. Can you talk the importance about pitch counts?
Yeah. So you're giving me a good setup here with these questions. When you've warmed up and loosened up on flat ground and you're going to your pregame warm up where you go to the mound, then, obviously we talked about this last week. You don't want to throw a whole lot in the bullpen before you go in the game. What you do is throw enough to get used to the mound, mixing and matching your pitches, probably 20 to 30 pitches max, because you should be loose before you even go to the bullpen for your pregame warm-up. And then when you go between the lines, you'll have, 6 to 7 throws before the hitter steps in. And then you count pitches, age specific. The average pitch totals for a major league starter or major league pitcher is about 15 pitches per inning. So if you follow our guidelines and ASMI with Glenn Fleisig's guidelines, you're probably looking, if you're less than 12 years old, you're looking at 60 to 75 pitches max in a given game if you get there at 15 pitches per inning. If you have a long inning and you throw like 30, 34 pitches, like happens a lot in Little League, you can get through that inning, but you're done after that inning. It's not just innings, it's number of pitches per inning. So if you just follow the guidelines that are out there, it will manage that process, and that'll take care of 1/3 of the things that keep the arm healthy: mechanics, functional strength, and pitch total.
So for the pitch totals, I have the website. You can find it on pitchsmart.org. You can see all the totals there, and then days off you need between X amount of pitches too.
Yeah, you need to recover, and thanks for setting that up.
Yeah.
Basically, you prepare, you compete, you recover to repeat. And the recovery process is just as important as the preparation, and competition is what tells you how good your preparation and recovery is. But all those numbers are in there, and they're there for a purpose. And it's really hard when you got a kid that has a no-hitter going in the 5th inning, and you ask him how he feels. There isn't a kid alive that's going to tell you he's getting tired. But you have to monitor the pitch totals and hang on to them to make sure. It's nice to throw a no-hitter when you're 12 years old, but nobody really cares when you're 19 or 20 that you did that when you were 12. So you have to be smart about it. And that makes sure that moms and dads talk to coaches before the season starts and sets out the parameters that they're all going to deal with. So there's nothing that has to be made, a decision that has to be made on the fly. Did that make sense, what I just said?
Makes sense. But I think now in the environment we're in, like win with some of these club teams, right? You get coaches where they don't care about the health; they just care about wins, right?
Well, pretty
And they're
much.
12 years old. It's like I'm.
I know, it breaks my heart, but that's kind of the travel team mindset.
Yeah.
Is what we're in right now. But there are travel team coaches out there that do try to follow guidelines. And there's no reason you can't ask your coach, or your son's or daughter's coach, to take advantage of that information.
Perfect. So okay, we did all the warm up, the throwing, the pitching from a mound. Like I get questions a lot. What do we do right after I pitched my game? Like, how do I recover?
Okay.
Prep for the next day, which is huge,
Perfect.
right?
That's also a great question. Remember, when you count pitches, it's the reason you count them is that's what takes energy out of your arm. And you have to put it back in with some form of resistance training. And the recovery process puts back into your arm and your total body what you took out of your arm and your total body in competition. So let's talk about that for just a second. We actually know that X amount of pitches at X velocity with X mechanical efficiency will take X foot-pounds out of your arm. And in your recovery process, right after the game, it used to be everybody believed that ice and icing your shoulder and your elbow were the ideal way to initiate the recovery process. As we get further and further into the research, ice isn't quite as effective as just plain old aerobic activity. If you can, after a game, jump on a stationary bike, go for a walk. Anything you do to get your blood circulating and flowing for 20 to 35 minutes post-game will help flush all the lactic acid that you incurred by throwing pitches during the game. So right after the game, you want to flush aerobically. You can also do some light physical activity with or without light weights like dumbbells, elastic cord, or just body work to kind of flush the muscles also. So think of it as energy out and energy in. And then you mix and match in recovery around when your next start or your next game appearance is going to be. So the pitch totals for a reliever are very similar to what they would be for a starter, except they're spread over however many relief appearances he's going to make in a given week. So there's a formula again. I know I drive you nuts with these formulas.
I like them.
Volume equals load, frequency, intensity, and duration. And this is a cautionary tale for all the parents that have a youngster that has arm speed without functional arm strength. And that means that his nervous system is allowing his arm to go faster than it can actually decelerate. And that's a bad arm waiting to happen if you ask that kid to throw large pitch totals in a single game. So if your goal is to get 75 pitches a week out of your 10-year-old, the kids that have arm speed without functional arm strength, they have to do their work in 3 25-pitch outings, give or take. So they're going to get the same pitch totals, but they're going to spread the workloads out over 3 days rather than doing it in one. And a lot of times, the tallest, the biggest kid on the team isn't necessarily the functional strongest on the team. So it has to, and there's, if you follow the mustard, and if you follow the research that's out there, you can identify quickly where your athlete is with his pitch totals versus his body and his ability to recover.
Perfect. Thank you. So with that, as a dad, how do I know my kid has functional strength versus absolute strength, right? How do I assess that? And how do I know what do we got to work on? And two, with that, all that, balancing the accelerators and the decelerators, can you tell me the difference?
Yeah, it sounds a lot more complicated than it actually is. So with your youngsters that are 13 or under, the kids that hormones haven't hit yet, you can tell literally by this how stiff and sore they are after a game, whether they've overloaded the mound activity at the expense of preparing for the mound. So when you get stiff or sore, if you're stiff on the front side of your elbow or the front side of your shoulder, it's mechanics. If you're stiff and sore on the back side of your elbow or the back side of your shoulder, it's functional strength. And this is a way for parents and coaches to identify with their athletes, whether they have mechanical issue or functional strength issues and recover. So that big kid that throws really hard, that's stiff and sore on the backside after a 40 pitch outing, he's probably a kid that should spread his outings into more often with less throws per outing. The kid that is not stiff or sore on the front side or the back side, he's got good mechanics, and for his pitch totals, his body's telling him he's okay. The body's not done if you let it be smart. Now I'm going to take a little sidebar real quick. Stiffness and soreness feel the same when you get to the ballpark. Say your daughter had X amount of serves as a volleyball player, and tomorrow when she wakes up, she's kind of tender on the front side of her elbow and the back side of her shoulder. She's got both strength and mechanics issues. That's what the body is telling you. Stiffness goes away in the warm-up, loosen up time frame. Soreness doesn't. You should never ask an athlete to perform sore or hurt. But in the warm-up, loosen up process, stiffness will actually go away. They feel the same when you wake up in the morning or when you get to the ballpark with your first couple, exercise. But stiffness will go away in the warm-up, loosen up process.
Perfect. Thank you. So somebody want to know again, repeat, if you get front side soreness after the game or front side shoulder soreness, it's mechanicals?
It's mechanics, yes, sir.
And if you get on the back side, then it's a functional strength.
The decelerators aren't strong enough to handle the accelerator.
Perfect. Let me see. We got some questions here coming in hot for Tom. That's from James. I know you cover pitch counts, but before I forget the question in regards to pitch count, is that for flat ground too?
So no, flat ground, we're actually designed as human beings to throw on flat ground. And the Japanese Little Leaguers are a good example. They'll throw, and throw some more on flat ground. Flat ground allows your body to accelerate and decelerate normally. The only unnatural thing about pitching is the mound. And when we first started this little get together today, I told you that in my opinion, kids pitch too much and they don't throw enough. So you dads or moms that are worried about pitch totals off the mound, you should. But throwing on flat ground, obviously I'm not telling you go get 1,000 rocks and throw it at 1,000 seagulls. I mean, there's some common sense here, but you can't really hurt yourself throwing on flat ground. In fact, I believe after 50 years in the game, we need to train more on flat ground and just save the mound for competition.
Yeah, I remember as a kid going to the park with my friends. I probably 200, 300 throws in one day, just hanging out
Yeah.
all day at the park. And
Yeah.
like the next day I was fine. My arm wasn't hurting, wasn't sore.
Yeah, because it's literally on flat ground. My brother
Yeah.
and I used to go to the beach up in Cannon Beach, Oregon, and we get buckets and go collect sea rocks. And then we'd throw at anything we could throw at. I bet you between myself and my brother, we probably threw 1 million pitches in the 6 or 7 years we went to the beach during the summer.
There we go. That's why you started throwing 82.
Yeah, probably. But I could throw 82 and hit basically anything I was throwing it.
And a curveball for a strike. That's how we
And
get.
a curveball for a strike. Thank you
Curveball
very
for a
much.
strike. So we got another question here from James. Do you see value in electronic muscle stem devices for recovery like Mark Pro or Complex? Not talking tens units.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things you can do, spend a lot of money on that will help both preparation and recovery. The easy way to think about it, we are creatures of light, electricity, and chemical. And light obviously is your sleep patterns and what your body does when it is asleep. The first 4 hours of sleep are for physical recovery. After that, it's neuroplasticity that takes everything you learned yesterday, physically and mentally, and puts it somewhere in the brain for recall later. When it comes to electricity, what this gentleman just asked, electrical stim used in the right way will facilitate both the preparation and the recovery process. It just makes the nervous system more efficient, flushing the bad stuff. And we say they're also chemical oriented. Chemistry is nutrition. The way you eat, supplement, and hydrate will affect what the chemistry of your body is all about. And if you've got good blood chemistry from nutrition, you'll recover probably 20% better than anybody else on your team. In fact, on the major league level, a starting pitcher who can recover in 2 days rather than 3 days has shown to be, instead of being 10-10, they'll be 12-8. There's a 2-game swing if you recover within 2 days. There's a formula that works all the way down to Little League. If your body can recover inside of 48 hours, you're taking advantage of light, chemistry, and electricity with your protocols. If you're still stiff and sore after 3 days, you're probably not recovering properly.
Perfect. And perfect. Thank you. And you mentioned hydration and sleep. How important is that for young athletes to get in that process at an early age?
It's absolutely huge. Now, I'll be honest with you, pre-adolescent kids, teenagers could probably metabolize cardboard and survive. But if you mix and match your meals, if you hydrate properly, and there's all kinds of information about hydration, but it basically 1/2 to 2/3 of your body weight in fluid ounces a day, hydrate early and hydrate often, will really help your recovery. It will also help you in preparation.
I don't know if I could drink that much water, Tom. I have a lot of body weight on me.
Well, then there's 2 ways you can look at that, and I'm sure you can figure that out without me saying it.
Yeah, perfect. Another topic I've written down here earlier. How does playing multiple sports prevent injuries? Does it teach your body to be more athletic? Because I know a lot of kids and parents, they want to specialize it in baseball, football, basketball,
Right.
soccer, whatever it is, at an early age. And I think that's nuts when but can you explain that a little bit?
Your think is very accurate. We mentioned it just a second ago. It's called neuroplasticity. The more sports you play, the more your nervous system is asked to perform relative to those sports. If you specialize, you're only using certain nerves in the pathways that are designed to throw or swing, and it will work really well as long as you're in those pathways. But if you get hurt or you're asked to recover or try something different, your nervous system isn't there to support it. So the more sports you play, the more nerve trees are recruited, the more you have up on the shelf to pull off the shelf when you're trying to either recover, come back from an injury, or prepare for another position in another sport. So multiple sports until you're probably 18, till you get out of high school. When you get to college or pro ball, you're going to have to specialize. But if you can, play as many sports as possible for as long as you possibly can, just because it makes you a better athlete as the years progress.
If I remember correctly, a lot of the guys you know, some of the big names you coach, they played multiple sports, right? Growing up, I think was it Brady, Breeze,
All of
Nolan
them,
Ryan.
yeah.
They all played growing up, right? A lot of
Yeah,
sports.
believe it or not, Nolan Ryan with that big old thick body of his, he was a really good basketball player. He could stuff a basketball behind his head with either hand. And, you know, Tom Brady was a catcher. He could have played pro ball as a catcher. Drew Brees played tennis, baseball, and football. So, you know, the more sports you play, the better off you're going to be in the long haul.
All right, maybe that was my issue. I was a specializer at an early age.
Well, it could be, but I have to
Yeah.
go back and look at you when you were 12 to see what you were actually
Yeah.
specializing at.
Yeah. So okay, so perfect. Let's play multiple sports, warm up, limit the amount of time on the mound, throw on flat ground as much as you can. Listen to your body, right? Am I
Perfect.
missing anything?
Good job. Yeah, that's exactly what I talked about.
Yeah, and another thing too, I don't know if we covered it, like being mindful of growth spurts, right? Because kids be growing and have setbacks. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, there's biological age and there's chronological age. And again, you're setting me up perfect with these questions. If your son or daughter grow an inch or gain 5 pounds in a given month, it pushes their neural pathway programming back 2 months. So for every inch grown and every 5 pound gain, it pushes you back from your chronological age and makes your biological age younger. So that 6'2" little leaguer, that when he at the end of the season last year, he was 5'9", and over the winter, he literally grew 5 inches and gained 25 pounds or 10 pounds. Do the math: 5 pounds, 2 months, 1 inch, 2 months. And then look at the windows of trainability. So that 15-year-old may still be 11 or 12 if he grew and gained weight.
I think that's where you see frustration sometimes with parents, right? Not being patient. It's like, what's going on? You're bigger now. It's like, what's going on with you? It's like, but the nerves are not talking to the muscles yet, correct?
Exactly. And when you have a kid that literally could pick it and throw with no problem at all,
Yeah.
last week, and this week he's tripping and falling, can't catch a ground ball, and can't throw a strike. Well, the bodies are changing so rapidly at that age. And the way to minimize how long it takes to get that skill back is to stay with the drills that we talk about through Mustard and all the research we've done on biomechanical proficiency.
Perfect. Thank you. I have another topic because somebody was asked me this week because he's been seeing a lot of injuries with high school athletes, little older athletes. They're having them lift heavy early and then throw their bullpen session right after. And he says the guys are just blowing out right and left and they don't change their ways.
Yeah, this breaks my heart because with good intentions,
Yeah,
the weight room can actually cause you issues. You can't work on skill if you're in muscle failure from lifting weights. You can't compete efficiently without risk of injury if you're in muscle failure from the weight room and you're going into a game, say you lifted in the afternoon, and then you're in a game that night, even for an inning or two, you're in muscle failure from the weight training, and you're asking your arm to produce, throwing a strike at maximum velocity. It's a dead end. It doesn't work. So you prepare, you compete, you recover. And if you're in muscle failure from the weight room, you have to treat it just like you were in muscle failure from pitch totals. Don't assume that you can mix and match.
perfect. Thank you. We'll touch up on real quick on rehab. Say you did get injured. say an elbow injury, which we see a lot, is there a proper way to start throwing again?
The way to think about recovery
Yeah.
from injury or surgery, whatever it might be, the only difference between prehab and rehab is the level of intensity. You're going to do the same exact exercise, nutrition, the whole 9 yards that you do when you're preparing, when you're recovering from. In fact, there's kind of a grassroots belief that when you come back from a Tommy John, you throw harder than before. Well, what we've figured out is the rehab program from a Tommy John, if done as a prehab program, they never have Tommy Johns. So the key here is to what you would do in recovery from a Tommy John, do it to keep a Tommy John from happening. Did that make sense?
Makes total sense. So just prepare before it happens.
Yeah,
Right.
and the information is out there.
Yeah. I always remember watching ESPN and I remember with Andrew Luck, he hasn't even thrown a ball, right? When he was making a comeback, and nobody knew that
yeah.
And nobody knew that you were coaching him, right, this whole time. And you had him throw, I think, right, towel drills and tennis balls.
Yeah, he never touched a football that whole summer. And all we did was train using weighted balls and, cross-specific resistance training. And the first day he threw a football, and we knew that this would happen because if you can throw a 1 pound ball 50 miles an hour, you can throw a football 50 yards. We know that from our formulas and our research. So he had trained to a point where he could throw a 1 pound ball 55 yards. So we knew right out of the chute in August when the camp started that he would be able to spin the football at 55 yards, which is exactly what he did. But you're right, all summer long, ESPN was
They were going crazy, yeah.
He hasn't touched a football yet. How do we know it's going to be okay? So that's the benefit of research and what we kind of do behind the scenes.
Perfect. Thank you. Let's see. We got a few more questions and then we'll wrap it up. Once again, everybody, if you have a question here before we check out, please drop it in the Q&A or in the chat and we'll ask Tom. We have some questions here from Discord. Here, first question. At what stage do you add planks, prayer crawls, push-ups, weight-bearing exercises, or do you mix them into training?
So I would not, my voice is going on, I apologize. I would not do heavy weights until testosterone shows up. So that means any body work, you can push up, pull up, sit ups, whatever you're lifting your body, it's called closed chain training. You can do all that you want up until testosterone starts. There was a guy named Herschel Walker. I don't know if you still remember that name.
Oh, yeah.
He never touched a heavy weight in his life. His mom said, you can watch all the TV you want, but when you're watching TV, you're going to do sit-ups, bench press, air benches, push-ups, whatever it might be, just body work. So I would strongly recommend resistance training for woodwiggers. They're either going to lift their body weight, they're not going to lift anything heavy at all.
Perfect. And then I think it was a follow-up to that. Also, pull-ups. Is there a right, wrong way to do them? Should we be doing them at all overhead athletes?
The only thing I would never hang from a bar. Always keep a little flex of the muscles to stabilize the joint. And a chin up is when your palms are going forward. A pull up is when your palms are in. Right. So chin up, pull up, and you can try both hand positions and they both work. If you happen to be in a position or have a machine where they have the various handles, when your palms are in a karate chop position, that will also help you build strength in a curveball delivery. So the only thing when you're doing pull-ups or chin-ups or palm out, palm in, don't hang. Always keep a little muscle supporting the joint.
Perfect. We got one more question from Discord. I've heard it's better to have the elbow below the shoulder at scap load. Is there any truth to that?
That's an individual thing. There are some guys that have a low throwing elbow on the throwing side, and a high elbow on the front side. So that isn't a blanket answer. What you're gonna find is most kids, when they square up, their elbow is gonna be shoulder height. As their torso squares up to the target, the elbow on the throwing side will be shoulder height. It won't be higher or lower. But that's when they square up. Getting there, you'll see all different, high elbow, low elbow, and everything in between.
Perfect. That wraps it up for the question. If anybody in the audience have any questions before we wrap it up, please drop them now. So just to summarize what we talked about today, Tom, for injury prevention, for athletes, have a good warm up.
You warm up to loosen up to do your activity. You quantify pitch totals, and you want to put back into the body what you took out of your body. You have to look at recovery, not just from mechanics and strength, but also from what's going on with your metabolization of food and your hydration and the way you approach the game mentally, emotionally. All those things fit together.
Perfect. Thank you. Let's see if any questions come in. I think that wraps it up, Tom. Thank you for tonight. I think it was a great call. I think
Yeah.
this was one of the most informative calls we've had in a long time.
As usual, you and your audience ask perfect questions.
Yeah.
Thanks for setting me up. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
perfect. Thank you. And next Tuesday, we're gonna have a class being the parent of an athlete. You know, we know that could be difficult, right? How to behave at events or practices, giving feedback to your son or daughter. Coach, mental performance coach Jason Goldsmith is going to go over all that next Tuesday at In the Kitchen for week 4 of the Parents Program at 9 p.m. Eastern. So
Perfect.
thank you very much, Tom. Once again, go have some great dinner.
I'm going to right now.
All right.
Thank you, Steve. Have a
Thank
good
you,
night.
everyone. Have a good night.